Remember, I have always said this, we live in the home of the brave. It has never been the land of the free. If anybody is going to save my life, it's going to be me, and I have to learn how to do it. I always wind up getting involved in leadership because I'm willing to do things. I just go after things because I won't let fear control me. I don't like being controlled. I don't believe people from the planet I come from are normal anyways. Things evolved is basically it, and being open to it and having people wanting and demanding it challenged me to find ways to help them. Then Mark did it to me, then I did it to Mark, and we didn't die. And we found that in only 2 shots it got rid of Ebola. The question is, how did I develop into who I am today and get to this point in time? And it's kind of interesting because I've thought about this over the years. This isn't something that, it's coming out from left field. So first let me say, I'm Dr. Howard Robbins. I'm not going to start where I am now and who I am now and what I do now, but I'm going to start with when I was little. When I was born, I learned something happened. And I learned this from doing a thing called the Landmark Forum. Okay, landmark education. I did all 3 parts. For those of you that know what that is, you'll know what I mean. And I learned that something happens to people at certain key ages, 5, 7, I think of 12, certain key ages. Some event occurs that shapes their whole life. And for me, I was on my bicycle. It was the mid-1950s. I had training wheels, and my sister got on the back of the bicycle. I figure I was somewhere around 7 years old, maybe 8, in that range. And as I was making a turn, one of the training wheels came up, the bicycle went down, I went down, and I scraped my eyebrow off. Now, I'm bleeding, and I believe I'm dying very soon. So I come back to my mother, who's in the courtyard of the apartment building in Brooklyn that I lived in, and she's talking to her friends, and I'm bleeding to death. And my remembrance of it was that she just stood there, sat there, talking to her friends before she finally got up to take me upstairs and save my life. And apparently, that changed my whole life, and it made me realize, if anybody is going to save my life, it's going to be me, and I have to learn how to do it. So realizing this, they help you get over this, because that isn't what really happened. Finally, speaking to my mother about it, she got up right away, took me upstairs. My father bandaged me up and stopped the bleeding, and I was fine, and obviously became 77 years old, so it didn't kill me. But it shaped me. And then the next thing that happened was Vietnam. Now, I was preparing myself with martial arts to go to Vietnam and become a Green Beret, and instead I wound up going to medical school, podiatric medical school. And there was something like 2,000 or 3,000 applications for every seat in every medical school in the country at the time, because it was the only sure way of staying out of Vietnam without going into a MASH unit, which could have happened. And so anyway, I wound up in school. Now I get out of school, and one of the things that I became, and I learned right away when I got into school, and in college even, I became an officer in my fraternity. It doesn't seem like I'm content to just sit back and be a private first class. I always wind up getting involved in leadership because I'm willing to do things. In high school, I did not get, in public school, I was a very quiet guy, minded my own business. Believe it or not, I had to overcome what people don't believe in me, is I am very shy. And I'm very quiet, and most people don't believe that in me, and it's because I force myself to overcome it. It's a fear, and many people are controlled by fear. We're going to maybe talk about that in a little bit. I am controlled by fear to a point, and then I just overcome my fear myself. I just, tighten the belt and, stiff upper lip and all that sort of, rot. And I just go after things because I won't let fear control me. I don't like being controlled. I believe most fear is unreasonable. Yeah, fear if somebody's holding a gun to you is one thing. And actually that scares me a lot less, because if they're going to pull the trigger and they actually shoot me, I'm probably going to be gone fast. I have a greater fear of illness than anything else, because illness falls into the category of the two things I treat: conditions and diseases that will kill you, and conditions and diseases that may not kill you but will make you wish you were dead. And they worry me the most. Well, in any case, so I've always been in leadership in my fraternity when I was in college, and then medical school. I wound up getting a free ride to medical school. I guess they saw, I had financial need. I was married with a kid, and at the same time, my grades, I guess, were pretty darn good, considering I had to work 7 days a week after school and weekends. So I had minutes to study, and I wound up in the top 10% of my class, apparently, and I'm very shocked the heck out of me. I envied my classmates who could, but I also had the anatomy lab scholarship. So that was a work scholarship. So I actually I was in charge of the cadaver material for 3.5 years. And it gave me the opportunity, I'm not going to get into how I manipulated that, to do a lot of cadaver surgery. So when I got into my surgical rotation, things happened, and I've always been blessed. That's honest and true. God blesses me, and I've had opportunities put to me that normally wouldn't happen, I think. But it happened with me. And otherwise, I would have looked to go and become a New York Yankee, or at that time a Brooklyn Dodger. Well, it wasn't Brooklyn Dodgers. They left. I hated them after that. And then the Giants left me. So it was probably a Met, a New York Met. Outfield. As I got bigger and stronger, I could throw the ball actually in from the outfield. But that was my favorite position. And I could hit. Even just a few years ago in a batting cage, I found out I could still hit 80-mile-an-hour balls. So that was good. My reflexes are excellent, even at this age. I just did the Porsche experience, which is kind of wild. You can be fearful of it and drive, and I watched people do that. They drove like they were, 90-year-old senile people, versus giving it overcoming as much fear as you can, and giving it as much pedal as you can. And that's what my life has always been about. I don't let fear control me. I do a lot of self-contemplation because of a lot of self-improvement workshops that I've done to learn about me a lot more. I don't believe people from the planet I come from are normal anyway, so compared to people from this planet. So because I live my life in a very strange way for the most part, in terms of what I'm willing to do and things that I get involved in. I grew up normal, fearful like everybody else. I just decided I wasn't going to let fear, I don't know, I didn't think about it. It wasn't a conscious thing. It just became a thing for me. Not to be, probably one of the key things that got me over fear is I never had seen a dead body. Never in a funeral. I was always, in movies, that's one thing, but in a funeral, I wouldn't even go and look at the body in a funeral. Now I go to medical school, and on my interview, they take me down to the anatomy lab. I will not describe what I saw there. I walked out in a state of shock. Literally, I was in shock. I had never, missing legs and stuff. Remember, it's podiatry school. It was the most horrifying thing I could ever imagine. And now I get what I'm most fearful of is what you get. I'm in charge of the anatomy lab for 3.5 years. Got me over that fear pretty good. Okay, So I've learned to overcome fear because I've been thrust into it, and I just don't let fear control me. I think they just have people have to work it out. It's all about your deeper personality. I'm a very assertive. I'm assertive, and my main personality is assertive. I'm not aggressive. I'm an assertive. And then usually there's two parts, but I'm a dynamic assertive. Okay, I don't sit around and wait. I give things a little bit of time, and then I take action. I assess and I take action. My father was the kind of person that made you feel less than you are, and nobody really encouraged me to do anything. Okay. You'll never get into college. So I was accepted at 4 out of the 5 schools. I didn't get into one of them because Marietta was a Jesuit school and I'm Jewish, and I didn't realize that it mattered. How they knew, I don't know, but maybe I wrote it on the application. I don't. But in any case, you'll never graduate college. Of course, I did, but I'll never get into medical school. So I got into 2 that I applied to. It depends on how you react. For me, it was to, adapt and overcome. It wasn't about listening to people telling me what I can't do and going along with them because they said I can't. I don't like the context of being led around like a cow with a ring in its nose, like I find many people are, including many doctors. The medical profession is fraught with people with the FDA says I must do this, or the medical board says I must do that, and I'm going to do only what I was taught in school, because if it wasn't taught to me in school, how good can it be? And I don't actively. I'm not a like my buddy Robert. He'd be a flag burning at Berkeley during the Vietnam War kind of guy. I would be at the rally. I would probably be in the leadership of the rally, but I'm not going to be. And I'd stand up on the thing, but I'm not going to burn my American flag. Okay, I'm a patriot. Well, this is up to parents. The most important thing now that I know a parent can really do, realizing it now later in life, is be supportive to their kids, offer them opportunities. Don't let them feel down and rejected if they fail, because failure is part of success. And they have to learn that they have to go through these kinds of things to be truly successful. And the key for a parent is to be supportive to the child and offer them as many opportunities as they can do, whether if they can afford to do them, if it costs money, or if they can't afford to do it, everything else they can do. That's the real issue, spending time with your kids, being with the kids. That wasn't in our parents' nature. They were a European type 1 parenting. Where now in the new age, type 2 parenting, you're there to support the kids and go to be at their school things. My parents never came to a play. They never came to anything. I did it all on my own. I had to be my own supporter. As early as it could be, from the age of 5 on. Because prior to the age of 5, I lived with, grandparents and great-grandparents, and they were very supportive because it was a different situation for them. I started the first karate club at the University of Louisville because I needed people to work out with. I got the library, as president of the club, I got the library to buy books on martial arts. So I had met with the librarian who loved that I asked her to buy books on martial arts, things like that. So I've always taken, like I say, a leadership kind of role in things that I do. I forgot about that. But you get pushed back at different times in different ways. I remember, we had a very dynamic martial arts club in college, and the head instructor, may he rest in peace, he can't be alive now, Don Bierman. He was Russian-born, and looked it, Russian-born, trained in Shotokan Karate by the CIA in Japan. He's teaching political geography at the University of Louisville during the Vietnam War, 70 miles from Fort Knox. You tell me what was going on. And his attitude was, and this was very important, now that you got me thinking about it, he was a black belt. He believed you're either a white belt or a black belt. Okay? And since he's a black belt, you can't be a black belt because you're not his equal. So you had to learn for the sake of learning, not because you were going to get promoted. And that's the way I've lived my life, basically learning because there's value in it. So moving on, I go away to medical school. I'm working all the time. I graduate. And I was also blessed with getting into hospitals where at that time podiatrists weren't really admitted to do surgery in hospitals. We were at the beginning of it all. And I got into 2 hospitals where, once again, I called it an externship in surgery with cousin Brucey, who taught me plastic surgery of the foot, which was different from orthopedic surgery of the foot, because he learned that out at the California school from a plastic surgeon. And he taught me to be nice. If I didn't say please to the in the OR to the nurse, please may I have a 15 scalpel, please may I have a if I didn't say please and thank you, he'd slap my hand. I'm a surgeon. Oh God. But it was humbling, and the nursing staff loved me because surgeons aren't particularly nice to nurses. They absolutely loved me, and it paid off later on. Well, anyway, then I got into 2 hospital staffs, one on Long Island, one in Brooklyn, and within a very short time, I became the director of podiatric medicine and surgery at both hospitals. Part of that is who the hell wants to do the extra work, and part of it is because you're qualified. And I was a pretty darn good surgeon, and I basically taught foot surgery for 6 years. I don't really want it, but it seems to happen. It seems to happen. It's like everybody who wants to be the president or who wants to be the vice president, take one step forward. So everybody takes a step back, and I'm looking. And it just happened in Rotary. I went to the bathroom, I came back, you're president. But then it wasn't good enough to be past president in Rotary. I started moving and doing things without realizing it to become a district governor. And the reason I wanted to be a district governor is because I wanted to be a PDG, a past district governor. I felt I would enjoy past district governor a lot more than district governor, but you got to do the district governor first. Okay. And it's not a 1-year commitment. It's 3 years getting you ready for it, then your year of doing it, and then all the years you're involved in leadership afterwards. It's just the way I am, and I don't realize it happening. It just seems to happen because I can't just sit back and let things not happen when actions need to be taken to benefit. So
you shouldn't say this could be better than we make it better.
Yeah, well, and now everything comes into play. We're not separate parts. Everything is dynamic in us. So here I am playing judo several nights a week in medical practice. And one night I come out after judo with my buddies. We go to a bar to have beer because we blow out huge amounts of water. We go out to have a beer. And a woman hears me talking about podiatry. And she starts asking me questions. And she likes what I say. And she says, would you like to be on radio? And that's when I got on my first alternative radio show on WMCA here in New York, which was a big radio station back. My first radio appearance was on December 2nd, 1977. I get down to the station on a Saturday morning and everything went wrong. I'm going down there. I'm on radio. You don't need good shoes. I had to put on good shoes. The lace broke. Had to fix the lace. I get onto the Long Island Expressway and the trunk of my car pops open. So I have to pull over and pull the trunk down. Weird stuff. I get to the station and I'm waiting by the downstairs in the street for the building. Door is locked. Finally, a janitor comes by and opens the door. I get up to the station on the floor. I'm supposed to go on at 9 a.m. Nobody's there. Finally, at 5 minutes to 9, Gary Knoll, Dr. Gary Knoll comes walking out, opens the door to let me in. He says, "Hi, I'm Gary Knoll. Hi, I'm Dr. Howard Robbins. Check my shoe size." I check his shoe size. "Yeah, your shoes seem to fit you good." "Great, go on and sit down." And I go into the room, and Ed Wigdorn was there, along with some others. I didn't know anything. Put these headphones on. When that light goes green, shut up, unless he speaks to you. So comes in, and I didn't know what they were trying to do. They had had a podiatrist on who had ripped off financially the producer of the show. So they were going to tear me apart. They wanted to denigrate podiatric medicine. But because I answered all the questions honestly and fairly and nicely, and I didn't let them press buttons on me, I became a regular. Now I had patients coming to my office, and they'd have bunions and hammer toes. And I'd say, "We need to do surgery on you." "Oh, I don't do surgery." "Okay, well then I'm going to have to give you an injection of cortisone for the inflammation." "Oh, I don't do those kind of things." "Well, then here's a prescription for an anti-inflammatory." "Oh, I don't take medicine." "So what do you want me to do for you? You're the doctor." So what they did was they challenged me to help them. And all the things I learned in school I couldn't do. So it forced me, and this is interesting, nothing forces me to do anything except a policeman with a gun. Nothing forces me to do anything. I don't let authority control me easily. But they challenged me to figure out how to help them. So I'm here, I'm in the natural health community, and I can't use pharmaceutical, traditional, what we call traditional medicine here. So I fell back on foot orthopedics, okay, to start with. And I hadn't realized, but I was trained by 3 of the 4 greatest minds in foot orthopedics in the 20th and 21st century. And I just by luck, chance, there's no such thing as chance or accident. Everything happens for reason and a purpose. And ultimately, I became the medical director of the largest race walking and running club in New York City, possibly one of the biggest in the country from what I gather. And I did more foot orthopedics, more orthotic devices, which are like eyeglasses and contact lenses or braces on teeth, depending on how other things you may want to view, more than one of the top practices in the country. The lab, which was the biggest lab, wouldn't tell me if I was number 1 or number 2, because my ego was already way up there, and that's always been a challenge for me to control ego. The ego, when controlled, will drive you to do things that normally you'd be afraid of doing, and I didn't realize that's why I was able to overcome fear, is because I have a strong ego. But not so strong that it'll make me be stupid.
Are you puzzled by people who don't seem to have the same tendencies to want to excel and move forward?
Most don't. Most don't. Surgeons tend to have strong egos because you're going in and you're going to cut open a body, fix something inside, close it up, and it's going to work again. And that takes a tremendous amount of confidence, of ego, to have the guts to do that kind of a thing. I don't care what part of the body you're working on.
That's the way you are. That's the way you're built. Right?
Yep.
But I'm asking, how do you feel about people who are not driven that way?
Oh,
Is that, you okay with that?
absolutely.
You think it's normal?
People don't have the right to tell people what to do, how to live, or how to be. Something I tell patients on almost every consultation. You're not the boss, I'm not the boss, your body's the boss. The only thing we ever have any control over is ourselves, and I have very little of that on myself as well. So the only person in the world you have any control over is yourself on what you will or won't do. And how much control do we really have individually? So nobody has the right to judge other people as to who they are, what they do, what they can or can't do. I mean, I can judge people who act in criminal ways that hurt other people, hurt animals. I have certain things that I don't tolerate. I don't tolerate child abuse, female abuse, animal abuse, and I don't tolerate prejudice. Those are my 4 things. My wife has to be fine with that, or else I can't have her as my wife. I can't have a person in my life who is okay with those things. Okay? I don't hunt animals, but I'm a firm believer of Second Amendment rights. But I don't believe in hunting animals. If I had to fight for my country and kill a person, I would do what I have to do. Okay? But my life is dedicated to saving lives and giving people back a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a daughter and son, a parent. My life is dedicated to saving life, not harming life. And that's why I haven't retired.
What I'm trying to get at is, I have something I characterize as type 1 error, where we assume that other people are like us, behave like us, think like us. But obviously we recognize that there are differences. You don't automatically expect other people to be like you. You find them as you find them.
Well, birds of a feather flock together are a reason. So those issues that matter to me are the people that I attract into my life. And those are the people that I become close to and that I'm friendly with. But they all don't have to be exactly like me. It's the strongest relationships are based on differences, not on commonalities. You need enough commonalities to be attracted to one another, but the differences are what bring people together and support each other in various ways. And I have my friendships span literally race, creed, color, religion, and financial place in life. Some of my closest friends are poor as can be, and I'm there to support them. And other friends of mine are brilliant, wealthy. I sometimes find myself with people, being involved with people like Gary Knoll, like Emmanuel Dr. Ravici, Robert Rowen. I find and many others in the alternative health world that I've been good friends with. Bobby Atkins, who got me started with ozone. Robert Atkins, the diet doctor. It's almost like I feel like I'm in Wayne's World. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Why would they want me to be with me and treat me as an equal? And I'm in awe of their presence. And that's the way I've always been. It just amazes me that they'll allow me to counsel me, to be with me, to ask me for advice, to come to me for help and advice. It just blows me away. I don't feel I don't feel like I'm the man, and yet I must be, or else they wouldn't be putting me in there, allowing me in their circle. The jokes do help, except with Robert. He loves them. He just likes to complain about them all the time. Well, we lectured together. Gary Knoll in the 1980s and into the 90s would be doing these weekend workshops up in the Catskills here in New York City. I met Bob Atkins back in, Jesus, must have been about 1984 in his heyday, you know, when he was in his heyday. I remember it was 1989 when I went into his office. He goes, "Robbins, you got to start doing ozone therapy." And when Bob would tell me his office was near mine, and if he said jump, I would go, "How high?" And that's the kind of respect I had for him. He was doing major autohemotherapy. So I went in. Oh, what is major autohemotherapy? This is where you take out a segment of blood, you ozonate it and put it back in. Now in those days, the way I was taught was more classic. First of all, we used glass collection bottles because all the safety testing that was ever done was using a glass container for the blood. And we were using 300 cc's of blood. Today they use 200 or less. So in any case, we use 300 cc's of blood and 360 cc's of oxygen and ozone gas at a 70 microgram concentration. And then additional oxygen to keep the blood going in. And that infusion, you let the blood drain out of the arm, just like donating blood to a blood bank. Takes about a half hour to get 300 cc's out in the average person. Then you put it, you lift it up, so gravity will allow it to drain back in, and you start pushing the ozone and oxygen gas in, gently, shake, don't stir, a la James Bond, who I treated. Won't tell you which one, but James Bond was a patient of mine. That was kind of cool. And in any case, took about an hour or two and sometimes longer. One of the concerns was that the blood wouldn't go back in. And when you didn't get the blood back in, which happened a number of times, it was always on a patient who needed it the most. Always on a patient that needed it the most. So we were set up in January of 1990, we began doing it. And because of Gary Knoll and his support of the healing center, we called it, we had started in 1989 doing intravenous vitamin drips. And we were doing up to vitamin C drips, up to 200,000 milligram vitamin C drips. And we added B complex, calcium, magnesium, selenium, zinc, glutathione, what else? Aquasol A, which was a water-soluble vitamin A, so you could give humongous amounts of it and not have to worry about hypervitaminosis. Very expensive stuff, but we were using 800 vials, 25,000 milligrams of vitamin C per vial. We were using 800 vials of vitamin C every 2 weeks. And nobody in the country except one guy out in California had been doing 200,000 milligram drips. And what we learned over 5 years and I don't even know how, we can't count how many vitamin C drips we did because we were just doing them like crazy. Well, I'll give you an idea. I was seeing on an average between 100 and 125 new patients a month. Some doctors don't see that in a year. Natural medicine, alternative medicine, complementary medicine. Then it became alternative medicine. Then it became integrative medicine. Now, because of Jeff Bland at around 2010 or 11, it became functional medicine. And the new name, and remember I said it now, you're going to hear it, it's already being used, precision medicine. That's the new name now. Same thing, doing the same thing all these years, and the name just keeps changing. There's times where pharmaceutical medicine is absolutely necessary. But if you can do something in a natural, safer way, obviously that's the best way to go. And what compelled me is what happened when I was a kid, to learn as much as I possibly could learn in how to heal myself. That's what drove me to learn about using herbal medicine. That's what drove me to learn about using vitamins and minerals. That's what drove me to learn about a little bit of Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine. This is what drove me into learning about ozone therapy. What drove me to that was simply giving people what they need. If people needed surgery, I offered surgery. If they wouldn't do surgery, I offered whatever I could do to help prevent the need for it. And it became very hard to do offer people surgery, because I said to them, I see the way your foot looks, but if I could make it virtually painless so you don't suffer anymore, and you could play your sports and do all your life activity, and maybe you have to wear a sneaker more often than not, and only put on dress shoes when you absolutely have to, would that be okay? Absolutely. Most people don't want surgery. So I made that transition from being a hotshot surgeon into using it only when necessary, when people want it. But now I made an additional transition into trying to help them without surgery first, and definitely without pharmaceuticals, unless there was a situation like you have a diabetic with gangrenous ulcers. I would automatically, back then, offer antibiotics. Now, I suggest it, but I know I don't need it in almost every case. So things evolved is basically it, and being open to it and having people wanting and demanding it challenged me to find ways to help them, and helping them was really helping me. I had to learn how to take care of myself. I had to learn how to heal myself if anything went wrong. And that's what led me into vitamin drips. And I used to sit there doing 100,000 milligram vitamin C drip with everything else in it while I'm doing the consultation. And it's very easy to talk people into doing something when you're doing it right in front of them. And then major autohemotherapy was all I knew for 5 years. So between 90 and 95, the end of 94, that's all I did. However, in July of 94, the man who made my ozone machines at the time, because I didn't know you could get them from Germany, or I didn't know that there might be other companies. I never looked around because I had mentors. And this is the guy that made the machines for Atkins, so it was the guy that made the machines for me. He said, you really, because he had learned how to do direct IV, which is the #1 way apparently done around most of the world, not all the world. And the man that taught me this was a man by the name of Tom Corbett. And Tom had, so in any case, that's why I got started doing direct IV, because I heard direct IV would work. I had my partner, I had a partner at the time, Mark Tannenbaum. So we had Tom do it to me, then Mark did it to me, then I did it to Mark, and we didn't die. So, okay, let's try it. We started trying it. That was in July of 1994. And we started doing it on some of the patients, and lo and behold, we got better results. We got amazing results. In fact, Noel, Gary Noel, we were all kind of impressed. We were getting better results with this than with the vitamin drips and with everything else that we were doing, including the major autohemotherapy. So we transitioned slowly but surely. As new people would come in, we wouldn't offer them. We started transitioning all the new patients that came in to direct IV, and we saw it was way superior in results to the major autohemotherapy, the blood method. So ultimately, we just stopped doing the blood method, and we just continued on with direct IV ozone because the benefits were there. Why doesn't putting gas into a vein kill a person with an embolism? I've done it at this point in time for this videotaping a little over, somewhere in and around 375,000 times. I only count patients in those numbers. So the numbers could be much higher than that. We did major autohemotherapy over 45,000 times. Okay, again, I don't count 45,000 plus. The plus is family, friends, myself. We saw what worked. Now, I wasn't involved in the ozone world at all. I had no idea what was going on in the ozone world. I wasn't in touch with anyone, virtually speaking. I just did my work. Not until 2011 or 12, when you started, when Bill Dome and others started the IAOHD. So I lived in an ozone bubble. Nobody told me what to do, nor am I likely the kind of guy that you can tell what to do. I will only be forced to do something because I have no choice, or do something because it's beneficial to people. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go drive down the street at 100 miles an hour because I don't want to be told it's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. You know, I don't do illegal, dangerous, stupid things. But when it comes to healthcare, I want to help people. That's all that my life is about. So I turned to it, and I continue to do it, not knowing any better. I know what I was told and taught to do, but there was a lot of human experimentation that took place to see if things would work. But the question is, why don't I hurt people with it? Okay? And that has to do with a bunch of things. First of all, there's a lot of science behind that. When I train doctors in this, I have all the data, mostly from the 2000s actually, showing why. First of all, oxygen does not embolize. It dissolves in the blood needs it. It attaches onto the empty iron molecules on the red blood cells that are devoid in oxygen in the venous blood. We also believe, some of us do, that the O3s actually do attach to those iron molecules as well that are devoid in oxygen. Johann Lahadny and I are in agreement on that. So we believe real ozone goes around the body. It isn't just instantly dissolved. Bocce says it's not ozone that causes trouble because it dissolves instantly in the blood. It's the oxygen. The ISCO3 says it's not ozone or oxygen that can cause these things because the blood is thirsty for them and it dissolves easily in them. May Bocce rest in peace. So if ozone and oxygen are needed in the body and dissolve instantly in the body, most important thing to keep in mind is it doesn't embolize because there's no attraction. It's hard to keep an extra oxygen molecule onto an ozone, onto an O2 for any length of time where it breaks down. So there's no attraction biochemically to make this occur. Air can embolize. Now, according to the experts in this, okay, and I have listings of them all and everything and where this information comes from as part of my training. You need to put, according to these experts, 140 cc's of air, which is made up of primarily nitrogen, 79%, and supposedly 21% oxygen, which can be as little as 15 or less, and depending on what city you're in, and loaded with parasites, ticks, not just ticks, but parasites, bugs, mites, virus, fungus, yeast, mold. Air is loaded with junk, dirt, okay? But it's the agglutination that takes place, the attraction of the nitrogen that can cause an embolus. Now, in 45% of neurosurgery, you get a VAE, a vascular air embolism. Why do doctors tap out oxygen bubbles? So why do the doctors then have to tap out the air bubbles? So when I ask that, literally 19 out of 20 doctors do not know the answer. Accurate amount of medicine in the syringe. The air bubbles don't matter at all. New York State is a very tough state to practice medicine in. And in 1990, they suspended Atkins' license for doing ozone therapy. It was almost $1.5 million fighting this over a 3-year period that he won the right for us to do ozone in New York State. Legal in all 50 states unless there is a state law or a health code that says you can't. And as this point in time, as far as I know, all 50 states permit it. No possibility of causing an embolus with direct IV, even if you pushed it fast. Now, you'd also have to push a humongous amount. And even when I used to exceed the amount that supposedly could cause trouble, we never had any trouble because I'm only pushing oxygen and ozone gas. There is never any air in the system whatsoever, and I've developed techniques that make certain that that can't happen. And that's why they've nicknamed it Robin's method of direct IV, not just direct IV. To me, the only thing that mattered was result. Nobody was telling me what to do, so I went for the method that was giving the best results. As Bocci said on a Gary Knowles show where he wanted me to come on and debate him when he came to New York once, Bocci said, it helps everything, it doesn't get rid of things. He was absolutely right. Major autohemotherapy seems to improve every condition we treat, but it didn't get rid of anything. Whereas with direct IV, I'm able to eliminate things either permanently, completely, once and for all, or when possible, prove that it has been cured. And that's why I made the transition. So now I'm doing direct IV, land office business, anywhere on a low end of 12 to as much as 15,000 treatments a year. That's how the numbers built up. Once again, my numbers built up into gigantic numbers. And there weren't many people doing ozone in this country at all. All right. So Atkins passed away. So I was the only one left in New York that was still doing it. No one was doing DIV but me. The results spoke for themselves. I stopped doing vitamin. Nobody ever entered a complaint, so nobody cared. When I started writing papers and I wanted to get a paper published in a podiatric medical journal, as I found the American Podiatric Medical Association journal, the APMA journal, I found out I had to get someone from the school to sign off on it. And when I contacted my school and I tried to get even a classmate who was on staff there to sign off on it, I couldn't get anybody to sign off on it. It's too far out of the box for them. They're very afraid of being accepted by the traditional medical world, and if we start doing natural things, it's going to cause a problem. Even to this day, and I think he finally retired, there was like only 2 or 3 of us in the whole country doing natural medicine in podiatry, and my first book was written with Gary Knowles called how to keep your feet and legs healthy for a lifetime. And our second book on sports medicine was our race walking and running club manual. It was called, published, very good book too, called Ultimate Training. I wrote all the sports medicine for it because that was my thing back then. Patients were calling me up and telling me they couldn't afford my podiatric services because they had spent their life's fortune in alternative doctors' offices who were charging them ridiculously large amounts of money, including Bobby Atkins, okay? And they just had no money left. So they couldn't afford my care. So one night after doing, because I was doing radio regularly with Gary Knowles and whatnot, I had my own radio show, now they call them podcasts, on AM radio and whatnot. And I said to him, you know, people were calling, it was a call-in radio show at points, and people would call in complaining about the alternative doctors charging an arm and a leg, and they can't afford them, and how can they spend fortunes and they're not well. So I said to Gary, you know what, because we were both upset about it, get me what I need to know, And we'll open up, and we named it the Healing Center ultimately. We'll open up the Healing Center and we'll start doing drips. And our motto was give more, charge less. Make it affordable for people. Because I saw I could do so much more to help more people with more things than what I was doing traditionally in sports medicine, using natural methods for podiatry and whatnot. And ultimately, I'm allowed to treat anything that affects the foot and ankle. I became a medical nutritionist. I had to learn it because I needed it for me as well as for my patients. But then I decided I don't want to stay up on everything. And I always use as an example, zinc. Is zinc piconolate the best form of zinc to take, or is there a better form to take? Which is the most absorbable, bioabsorbable, bioavailable, and bioutilizable form? How much for a man? How much for a woman? How much for a child of different ages and size? What time of day to take it? What time of day shouldn't you take it? What food should you take it with? What food shouldn't you take it with? What supplements can you take with it? What supplements shouldn't you take with it at the same time? How much time in between taking it and doing other things? And I can go on with a lot more questions. That's just on zinc. You know how many different vitamins, minerals, supplements, and herbs there are? If you really want to practice it the right way, you need to stay up on it and watch the literature. And it wore me out. And I decided, you know what? I love ozone therapy. I get results that are just phenomenal. And let the other guys and gals spend their time and energy researching everything else. And I just researched ozone. Until I had a problem. A friend of mine who developed this very special probiotic beverage because he convinced me that I was having the same problem that he saw, since he was a acupuncturist Chinese medicine doctor, that capsule, powder, tablet probiotics weren't working. Didn't know why. They weren't working. So he came up with a liquid probiotic beverage that smelled horrible, that tasted worse, and it worked. And it worked. And the reason it worked is because the bacteria that were in there were living. And I saw my patients get benefits from it that I hadn't achieved before. And I knew that ozone was killing, because I helped so many patients with digestive diseases. I saw that it did that. I knew that I had to find a probiotic that would work. And I tried everything that was on the market, dozens of different ones. And I basically let people buy whatever they could afford and take it in humongous doses to see if it would help. So after 11 years, when I found out that this had never been, though I'd been told it was laboratory tested for safety, and it wasn't, I stopped using it. And that's when I went on to this search for what became Doctor's Biome. And initially, we were making an explosive product. It would ferment in the bottle, and the pressure would build up that the bottles would explode. Tasted great, but it was definitely meant to be mortar shells or hand grenades. Not necessarily something drunk by a person. And it took 3 food scientists and $500,000, or closer to $750,000 in research to come up with what we have. And we found that of 27 bacteria we were using, only 15 were compatible with one another. And that they could actually be created as next generation to survive the stomach over 90%. Because you have a very special pH in the stomach, generally about 1.2. And you had to have bacteria that could survive that. Unfortunately, capsule, powders, and tablet bacteria are in suspended animation. They're freeze-dried into suspended animation. And they have to come out of suspended animation in the stomach. Well, freeze-drying destroys most of it because they're very sensitive. Then they have to be capable of surviving the stomach acid. Different bacteria require different pHs. So yeah, and then you had to find some that wouldn't overwhelm others, even though they were considered beneficial. Remember, a probiotic must convey, by all the definitions, it must convey a health benefit on the host, or else it is not a probiotic. It's just not harmful bacteria. And then they had to stick to the wall of the gut, all right, which is another problem because most of the bacteria are rods, they're sticks. They float through, they aid digestion, but they float through and out of you. You need the kind that have, as would say, hands and feet that can glue onto the wall of the gut and change their genetic expression to become part of you. And then they kept giving up their lives every day because we're drinking liquids and eating foods that are contaminated with bacteria all the time. So they're giving up their life every day, fighting these bad, the bad biome that comes in with our food. And you have to keep replenishing them. So we learned a lot, and we knew we had to get rid of things like Saccharomyces boulardii, which was a very commonly used, powerful one, caused a lot of bloating, but it overwhelmed everybody else. And the reason that our 15 patented strains worked were next generation, meaning, first of all, they're living. They're living in a 100% organic juice, vegetable fruit juice, that supplies them with their food, which is basically fiber, prebiotic, okay, almost no sugar in it at all. So it gave it its prebiotic to feed on and grow in number every day, survive the stomach acid because they're next generation bacteria, that's what they're called, stick to the wall of the gut because they're called smart probiotics, and work and play well with each other in the colon sandboxes, I call it. And that's what made this product actually work. So they have to be strains that could work against various pathogenic bacteria and yeast to get yeast in balance again. Yeast is natural in our gut. You're supposed to have it, but you got to rebalance it. Antibiotics kill all the good boys off, as you find in red meat or chicken or farm-raised fish. Even if you burn the meat, you get them. So we're always having to replenish them. So they have to be able to survive that. And that's why the doctor's biome became so important to my patients. But what's interesting about ozone is when it enters your blood, it acts like an antioxidant, even though it's an oxidative process. In essence, it becomes a free radical scavenger, like antioxidants are. So it's not creating harmful free radicals, it's eliminating harmful free radicals. Ozone is going to meet virus, fungus, yeast, mold, bacteria, parasites, toxins, harmful free radicals, toxic metals, and react with that just as much as it would with a pharmaceutical or a nutraceutical. And it's going to go to what it's most attracted to. So organisms that have double bonds like viruses, like COVID and Ebola, that are loaded with sulfhydryl groups and double bonds, it's going to have a stronger attraction to. It's going to attack that first, not necessarily, and other viruses that might have various protective layers made up of double bonds of different types. Well, this was part of what I needed for my patients, but I also needed it for myself because I knew I needed probiotics as well. Everything was, to be blunt, everything that I've learned to do is about helping me stay alive and overcoming illness of any kind, because I don't trust the pharmaceutical industry. I don't trust the traditional medical industry. The only people that I ever let stick me are my buddy Rowen or myself. I've done almost all my own therapies, and when I had to early on, my RN staff. How can I protect myself against death from medical issues, health issues, and injury? So how did I get involved with Ebola? So in 2012, we were invited to speak at a World Congress in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia on anti-aging and regenerative medicine. It was going to be a day on ozone therapy, on anti-aging and regenerative medicine. So I was flown out there and paid to speak, as was Robert Rowen, and that's when the two of us met. with his wife Terry and my wife Lynette. And we became friendly, and we became close friends, but friendly. Now he's like my blood brother. And so anyway, we became very close friends. And now we were going to speak at a conference in Cuba in 2014. I believe it was September of 2014. With the IAOAH. And Bill Dome and Mark Weiser were putting this on. And there was all sorts of controversy brought on by one person from a privately owned organization who will remain nameless, Adriana Schwartz, who was against direct IV ozone and actually against all methods of ozone except major order chemotherapy. Adriana Schwartz was from Madrid, Spain. She caused all sorts of trouble on ozone in there, but set up her own private ozone organizations. Told the Cuban government that some of the Americans were in the CIA and that they better watch us because she couldn't get them to eliminate me from the conference. I didn't know her, she didn't know me, she just didn't want anybody speaking on direct IV. All this controversy is going on, and it's July, and Robert gives me a phone call on the cell and says to me, you know, they're having a serious Ebola outbreak in West Africa. I'm sure we could fix it with ozone. Why don't we go? And people know how deadly Ebola is. If you get it within 10 days, you're dead from hemorrhagic fever, as Ebola is called, from the Ebola virus. And so I instantly said to him, are you out of your effing mind? Are you going to risk your life? Not a chance. And I hung up on him. Oh, before I hung up, I have to say, he said to me, okay, well then I'm going to go and use your direct IV method and get all the credit without you. I hung up. I immediately pressed redial. As soon as he picked up, I go, if you think you're going to get all the fame and glory using my method without me, you're out of your mind. And that's when we laid our plans down. Now we tried to get there, get connected there, and he tried everything he could and couldn't get anywhere. So I contacted Rotarians in Nigeria first, and then eventually in Sierra Leone. And it was through Rotarians that we got connected with a doctor there. And we were invited by the president of Sierra Leone, Dr. Ernest Bai Koroma, to come out to Sierra Leone, and we set this all up and for October of 2014. And we had over $35,000 worth of checks come in, people wanting to support it. I told Robert, we're not taking a nickel. I don't want anybody to point fingers at us for this. So we're going to spend our own money to pay for airfare and hotels and food. What we used, the money that came in, have made all the checks go to the Central Nassau County Rotary Foundation. We flew out to Sierra Leone. We were met by by invitation of the president. We were met by the doctor and the military to see that all our supplies came in. We lectured, got in at midnight, we lectured that morning on it. Then we started training doctors on, this was a Saturday, Sunday, lecturing, then training doctors Sunday, Monday. When we were training doctors at this building they called the Blue Cross Hospital there. It wasn't much of a hospital, it was more just like a building guarded by military. In any case, the head of medicine in West Africa, for all the countries of West Africa, was a woman by the name of Eva Roberts. I don't know what age she was, certainly an older woman, was against what we were doing. But she was there to watch over everything we did. So she came to the lectures, she came to the training. On the first day of training, during a lunch break that we took, we went into one of the rooms with her. And I'm sitting there with my mini iPad, minding my business, and Robert is explaining to her for the arthritis in her knees why he can give her ozone therapy and it would make a difference. And she allowed him to do it. In fact, if I remember right, it was her right knee. Not her left, both knees, but her right knee. She gets up. Her pain is gone. She's walking around and flexing it. She felt wonderful. It was like a miracle. And I'm sitting there going, I think I should learn ozone therapy, which I hadn't been doing at all until then. So in any case, she comes back into the room and she gives it to me and Robert, and then she starts teaching, helping us teach the other doctors on how to give it to the other doctors, train the doctors in it. So we won her, Robert won her over with ozone therapy. Amazing. Then we met with the president, who had me treat him in his home that evening, that gave us permission to go in, throwing out the Ebola, the minister of health, who was the Ebola czar, because he was getting in our way and not wanting us to do this. And I went on television, and that was important because the television show called The Forum, I was the last one up. The man next to me was working for the Minister of Health, and people were calling in the show, even though it was television, it was a call-in, complaining about that their loved ones were being put into mass graves rather than individual graves that had been money sent to them from the World Health Organization for. Didn't think much about it at the time. And then I talked about ozone, went on radio. The whole country knew we were there. Robert went on television, and he was debated by the interviewer, who was absolutely against us doing ozone there. He said we were treating Africans like guinea pigs. We met with the Minister of Health, Dr. Major Paulo Conte, who was the Minister of Defense, I should say, and had become the Ebola czar on Tuesday because the Minister of Health was thrown out. Wednesday, we went over to the Rotary Club in Freedom Town, the capital of Sierra Leone, because they were honoring me and my colleagues for what we were doing. And then I was I was driven to the airport because that was my plan to go home separately. Robert stayed on another day, a couple of days, and he went to the Sierra Leone Ebola Center for treating people. He gets there, and none of the 90-plus doctors that we lectured to and trained were there. It was a little bit surprising. Robert goes to the Ebola Center. When he gets there, there are no doctors there that we've trained. He tells everybody about it, and they line up to get ozone therapy. They all want to do it and learn it and use it. Call comes through from the Assistant Minister of Health. Don't do anything until you hear from the minister. The minister calls in and goes, if you do ozone therapy or get it, you will lose your job. He no longer controlled over what to do because Paulo Conte, the day before, Wednesday afternoon, after speaking with him for 30 minutes, I said, do you have any questions? His answer was, yes, why aren't you in there yet? So now we had from the Minister of Defense, but the head of health now, Ebola, and from the president, permission to go in. So because of that, they were thrown out of the Ebola Center, figuratively speaking. 5 doctors' lives were saved because they snuck it in so that nobody would know that it was happening except the doctors who snuck it in and gave it to the doctors who got it. And all 5 lives were saved. And we were published in August of 2016 in the African Journal of Infectious Disease. They were using direct IV and rectal insufflation, best that I remember. That of course, we had all those supplies given them that they had smuggled in, and they were doing it. And we found that in only 2 shots, it got rid of Ebola. it took us over a year and change to get the information sent us because we wanted laboratory evidence of all this, not just hearsay. And that's how we got published finally in the August of 2016, the African Journal of Infectious Disease. In February of 2017, now Ebola is finally over. In 2017, February, MSNBC goes on record as saying $3.5 million given by the World Health Organization for the treatment for Ebola went missing in Sierra Leone. The man who debated Rowen on television, saying that we were treating Africans like guinea pigs and had no right to do this, was arrested and put in jail for having absconded with $500,000. And we were told at the airport by one African, all the politicians in Africa are corrupt, but this is Africa, what can we do? In March of 2017, that we were given an award for, I call it the Ozone Congressional Medal of Honor, for what we did, risking our lives and going there and doing what we did. And then Frank called me up in March to say I didn't know why. We're going to be banning direct IV from the AAO, which I was a founding member of. And as it turned out, he wanted to sit on Adriana's board on the ISCO3 as a vice president, and she wouldn't permit it. And that's why he had to ban it. And I said, what am I going to do with all the lawsuits I'm going to get if I suddenly want to stop doing it and go to MAH? Besides which, I could use a little itty bitty baby needle for direct IV and treat 10 out of 10, or even a PICC line. I can't do that when I need a blood needle for MAH. How do I can treat 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 at most. And I'm not going to go, as he suggested, to rectal insufflation as an alternative like everybody else. So Robert was getting amazingly faster results because he's putting in a humongous amount of medicine. So I made a change down to a 40 microgram concentration. And since then, I've gotten 0 damage to veins. And by adding some intravenous calcium, okay, into a syringe with sterile water, or saline actually, that preps the vein, okay, so that it doesn't get irritated by the ozone at all. Mark Hyman called me up to give me that bright idea. And since we've been using that, we've had 0 vein irritation or problems. I've always been very careful for my patient's sake. I wait when something new comes out. I always wait, watch, and listen and evaluate to see, is it going to be effective? Is it going to be safe? Safe and effective before I will add it into the practice. So it took me some years to add HOCAT into the practice because I wanted to, HOCATT, well, it stands for a whole bunch of things. It's a very special type of ozone sauna, which by itself is relatively safe, but it does 8 different therapies all at the same time. And it has a tremendous benefit, and I use it 30 minutes after an IV ozone. So I've added on hyperbaric high dose ozone with multipass, 10 pass. We do direct IV. We do intravenous vitamin C, 25 to 50,000 milligram drips. I got a big round of applause even from Frank on the use of glutathione. Well, Frank is the president of the American Association of Ozone Therapy, American Academy of Ozone Therapy, the AAOT, and privately owned by him, which is why he decided to get rid of me. He changed his mind. Well, he gave us a choice. If you want to be a member, you can't be doing direct IV. I recently heard he changed his position, and he's allowing you to do direct IV if you want, okay, to be a member. I would make certain that things were working for others, that it wasn't just a passing fad or fancy to make money. And when I saw something had real beneficial effect, I would add it on. So I added HOCAT onto me, along with all those other things, and intravenous glutathione. Half your ozone, then the glut, then the other half of the ozone. I called it a Robin's Glut sandwich. Because what happened was when ozone meets glutathione natural, or what we put in intravenously, it releases They negate each other according to Bocce, 1 mole to 1 mole, but it increases production of reactive oxygen species, alkenes, alkanes, peroxides, peroxyls, superoanions, etc. And it increases the production of lipid oxidation products, alpha and beta interferon, interleukins number 2, 6, 7, and 8, and tumor necrosis factor, another interleukin. And they would only last for about 2 hours, so they wouldn't be dangerous according to all of Bocce's published work and experiment on it. So reading the literature differently and then having an event occur in the office, I added into the practice and lo and behold, got amazingly beneficial kill-off results. Sometimes too powerful for people, so we had to back off it because the kill-off was so strong. Key was to get people well as fast as I possibly could. In fact, I've only had 2 adverse reactions where people had an allergic reaction to direct IV, where I had to stop treating them. And this is with thousands of patients now, thousands upon thousands of patients, and over 425,000 intravenous treatments. Why I'm still in the game is because I don't play golf, I don't play tennis, I don't play pickleball. I can sculpt, but I don't. I can't paint to save my life. So what am I going to do with all the extra free time? You can only watch movies and read so many books. So I write papers for medical journals. I'm not looking to write a book to get people in. I write papers for doctors. I'm being published on probiotics. I have 5 publications in peer-reviewed medical journals, the latest one being on C. diff. Clostridium difficile infection comes when you give people antibiotics, and it kills all the bacteria in your gut off, but only certain antibiotics can actually kill Clostridium difficile. And this causes severe diarrhea, and over 500,000 Americans get it every year. 28 to 30,000 die from it, from uncontrolled diarrhea, mostly seniors and children. And it's an extremely hard bacteria to treat. And just Doctor's Biome alone can fix it, along with ozone, of course. But even without ozone, just Doctor's Biome has been proven to fix it. I'm going to be published very shortly in hopefully the Journal of Gastroenterology Research, which I have papers published in, and other medical journals showing ozone probiotics benefits. I'm getting published very shortly, keep fingers crossed, in Journal of Immunology, which is a Tier 1 journal. This is being published by the Tufts University Medical School's research department. I am listed as 4th author because I got them a Zotzman ozone machine, helped them show how to use it and discuss the methods of using it with them for it, for the treatment of Lyme disease, specifically Borrelia burgdorferi, and it was successful. And it's now submitted for publication, and I'm 4th author. So why I do all this? Because it's my calling. It's about saving people's lives, giving parents back their children, children back their parents, husbands their wives. New York State has come after me for various reasons. Once with a complaint that I got rid of a virus in a person who never had the virus, and yet we have all the clinical proof that he had the virus. So I seroconverted the virus, meaning we got rid of it so completely he didn't produce antibodies for it, which is an amazing thing. A complaint on going for treating Ebola, and that was dismissed. The key is to practice within my scope. So everything is always to practice within my scope. And we basically eliminated any complaints that my state board has had with me practicing out of scope. There's still one that was dropped, should say, put aside 6 years ago, that has not resurfaced. So if it's laying in waiting, they've left me alone to keep practicing for the last 6 years, practicing whether I was treating a knee or treating a foot. States do go after doctors, and I'm often called, not often, I've been called in several times now to help doctors out who have their states coming after them because they just don't want them using ozone. Not because they hurt anybody whatsoever. I had to testify in one lawsuit on MAH. The question is, how do you make more of me? Well, in terms of what I do, I train doctors one-on-one or one-on-twos. I do help Rowen with group trainings. But basically, I train doctors and I try to give them the courage to go home and treat people and save lives using ozone therapy. It's hard to, you have to be naturally created by God. I don't think it's something you can teach people to be. You can encourage them, you can let them be an example. You can be an example, but it has to be encouraging, and people have to be open-minded. If you just open your mind and open your hearts and come from your heart and your and your intuition, you can't go wrong. Until all your symptoms are gone for an entire month, and then we diminish the treatment. I don't need anything else. Everybody that's gone everywhere else winds up in an ozone doctor's office, and if you're doing the right methods, then we get rid of it. And you don't do it until the point where your symptoms are just completely gone. When they're completely gone, then you come twice a week for a month, then once a week for a month to make sure no symptoms have returned. And then once a month, here's where you're not going to like it, but it's the way I tell it. Once a month, either forever, or until they actually have a test that can truly prove it's gone. Yeah. Only a laboratory out in Palo Alto, California, seems to have a more sensitive test, but they're not always good. And then some labs, different labs are testing for DNA. Some labs test for, they culture your blood to see if something comes up. There's a bunch of different co-infections. Okay, it's not just Borrelia burgdorferi and Minamodi or Minamodi. Yeah, right. It can be any of the different co-infections. Okay, Babesia, Bartonella, or Ehrlichia, Anaplasma. It could even be Rocky Mountain spotted fever is considered in this, even though that's separate in this whole group. Okay, Mycoplasma. These are all the co-infections. It doesn't matter which ones you have or don't. I don't care. I don't test, I treat. My patients have come to me having spent fortunes trying to get well, wrecking their immune system with antibiotics. And I just do ozone therapy. The only thing you need is ozone therapy, vitamin C, 5 or 6 times a day, though it can cause a Herxheimer reaction, so you may have to adjust the dosage, even with the powdered vitamin C. This is why I keep powder in the office. And then, of course, doctor's biome is essential. It's not, oh, I can get away without it, I don't want to spend. It's essential.
I take it already anyway.
Yeah, it's essential.
Yeah.
Those and then it's a marathon. It is not a 50-yard dash to get you well. It's a marathon. It can take months, okay, to a year or more to get a person really well. Now, doesn't mean I cured you, because again, I can put you in remission, and I've done that more than once and realized that when patients came back with, interestingly enough, different symptoms than when they had the first time. I left out breathing and lung issues and heart palpitations at times. So you don't run over to the cardiologist and they want to put a pacemaker in. And you don't go to the pulmonologist and he doesn't know what's wrong. Or you wind up with tremors and tics, and you're going to the neurologist and they can't figure out what you got either. It's all Lyme disease. That's what it is. Treat it that way, and likely you will win. It doesn't take a day off. It regrows, regenerates, and duplicates every moment. So it doesn't take a day off. Generally speaking, you may not be able to come in daily and get the therapy because of herxing. The kill-off can be tremendous. So you may need days off. You're not the boss. Your body's the boss.
Yeah.
And then I need a phone call if it's hitting you hard so I can adjust the dosage of the medicine. Okay? I don't wait for people to come in and pay me money in my consult room. You can call me on the phone for free and get the information. You know, let me know. I'll ask you questions. We'll see what's happening, and then I adjust the next treatments and back and forth as much as we have to do. That's the story.
Okay, and I guess my big question is, because if I have it, I probably got it like 3 weeks ago.
It's possible. That would be better, because there's a good chance you'll be feeling better a hell of a lot quicker. When
Yeah,
I catch,
exactly. Yeah,
I've
this
had
is
8
small.
I just got it's in my career. I've had a couple of thousand who've had
Yeah,
it
I know.
for forever.
Yeah, I'm
5
just
to
in your
20
office all the
years.
time.
5 to 20 years.
No, I'm in your office all the time. I see all of them,
Yep.
But I guess my question is, you don't think because it's new? I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on because I did spend time in upstate, and it just.
If you could
sort of
answer
got
yes
but,
to, if you can answer yes to many of the things that I said,
yeah,
then the
and I've had
answer
it
is
before.
if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and looks like a
Yeah,
duck, it's not
a
a,
duck.
it's not a, it's not a platypus.
Yeah. Right. So, but I guess because I had it before years ago and got rid of it with doxycycline, should I?
You
be
never
taking
got rid of
doxycycline
it.
as
You
well?
put it into remission. You never got rid of it.
I just
You
haven't had
put
any
it.
issues. I've had issues for 18 years.
That's
so.
what did I say? 5 to 20 years is the norm, and then they have issues.
Okay,
Because it goes from first stage, second stage, kind of. Sometimes I get late second stage. Most of the people I see are third stage. Fourth stage, I call it there's a fourth stage to Lyme. It's death. Because an organ or system in your body starts to fail, they can't fix it because it isn't what they think it is, so it doesn't respond to pharmaceuticals, and then the patient passes away, and they don't know why.
I guess my big question is
You've had many big questions.
Should I do doxycycline?
I don't use antibiotics in my medical practice. If you want to go and see Dr. Kalsi and get him to prescribe antibiotics for you, that's perfectly fine. He works on Friday afternoons now in the office.
He's in your office? Okay. All
right. So you could see him and he could give you antibiotics. I don't use antibiotics. I use the best antibiotic in the world called intravenous ozone therapy.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing it for years. But my question is it better to do ozone and antibiotics, or is
not in my opinion?
Better in your opinion,
because antibiotics mess up your digestive system and have other adverse effects on the body, and sometimes, and I've had patients who can't do them anymore. They've had them all. You need to be doing them when the LLDs use them. They use them for 6 months to a year or more, which is technically not legal. Because you're not supposed to use it past a couple of weeks, and yet they know they have to do that because they don't have any other guns to use. These are their guns and bullets is antibiotics. I use ozone therapy very successfully on thousands of patients.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Stay with it. God willing, you'll win. No doctor should promise, moral and ethical doctor should ever promise and guarantee a result. The good news for you, if you stay with it, you should win. If you mess around with it, you can reach a point, which I've had only happen once, that I could, maybe twice, with a patient with Lyme, where I go, it's too late. They waited until it was too late, and even on 20 cc's, they were herxing severely to the point where they just couldn't continue care.
Right. Okay, so just 55 cc's a day.
You're doing great.
Every day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you can do it every day, you'll feel better quicker. It'll take some time, but very soon you'll start to notice respites. Also,
is he doing his own?
No, I'm in my office.
Oh, okay.
I'm being filmed for a documentary on this. Very big. Hocket. You do the ozone, you wait 30 minutes, then go into the hocket. 99% chance you're going to walk out for a few hours feeling great. Now, I didn't say a day or more. That would be almost a miracle. But miracles are possible. I have them happen all the time. But every Lyme patient, when they do Hocket 30 minutes after the ozone, almost without variation, they feel wonderful afterwards. It lasts some hours. It doesn't last. I don't remember people telling me days. You'd have to ask Dr. Tannenbaum that. But it's a respite from all the suffering.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Okay. Talk to you later.
you got it. Bye-bye now.
Okay. Bye.
I've had joints that are bone on bone grow cartilage.
Yeah.
Ozone's gone in 10 minutes. How can it grow cartilage? It can't. It has to be stem cells. But in New York State, if you do a saliva test, you lose your license. If you want to do hair analysis for toxic metal, you'll lose your license. The doctors the alternative guys that do it, they have to give the kit to the patient. They'll tell them what to do with saliva, or they'll cut off the half of them and tell them what to do. And then they have to send it out and get the results back, because people are allowed to do it. But in New York State, the state board, medical board, will not allow you to do it. I believe a German doctor, and Jarisch, nobody ever mentions him but me, he was a Swiss doctor, discovered that when you give a person an antibiotic, there's a kill-off reaction of the bacteria in the body, and your body has to basically deal with this kill-off reaction. To simplify it, eliminate the waste. And if your body doesn't eliminate the waste rapidly enough or fast enough, in a mild to moderate reaction, which was a cytokine reaction that occurred, you would fall asleep. In a very severe one, you had no choice. You couldn't stay awake. You would go to sleep. In a very severe reaction, you would feel like you're getting flu-like symptoms, fever, chills, muscle achy, joint achy. And in the most severe reactions, which I've seen only a few times from it, you're disoriented. You don't know where you are or who you are for a period of, till you go to sleep and wake up. Then you're fine. And it's been tested to show that with ozone, this can happen. And with ozone, it'll go away completely, and there's no adverse effects whatsoever on the human body. Tested in a hospital to prove that's true. So herxing was an issue, and how to adjust the medicine, because ozone is just medicine, is something that I've learned how to do over the years so that people get the most beneficial effect with the least herxing whatsoever, and fortunately no negative effects.